Aloha again, good morning. Thank you so much, Uncle Bruce and Aunty Kehau, for that warm blessing. A big thank you to our team at the U.S. Department of Defense, OSD, for all their help planning this workshop today. And a huge thank you, of course, to all of you, the many practitioners, community members, and stakeholders that we have met with over the last few weeks and months. Without your interest and insight and enthusiasm, today's workshop would not have come together, so thank you. My name is Margaret Back. I am a Preservation Projects Manager with the Newport Restoration Foundation in Newport, Rhode Island. The Newport Restoration Foundation, also called NRF, was founded in 1968 by philanthropist Doris Duke to preserve the 18th and 19th century architectural heritage of a Newport fast disappearing to urban renewal. Today, NRF stewards over 70 historic properties across the city of Newport, the majority of which are rented and lived in by tenant stewards. We also operate Rough Point Museum, the Newport home of Doris Duke, and the Vernon House, a study site for our NRF Preservation Trades Training Initiative. But I'm here today because NRF founded Keeping History Above Water in 2016. Both because as an organization and within our community in the city of Newport, we face a problem quite similar to the ones that may have brought you all here today. The city of Newport is located on Aquidneck Island, the traditional lands of the Narragansett people, and while we have always been subject to storms and high tides, these events have dramatically increased over the last 20 years, making even flash flood events really dangerous along our streets, our sidewalks, and within our homes. In Newport, we value our connection to the water and our historic seaside neighborhood. Our organization was moved to take action to avoid irreversible harm to the buildings and homes that shape our community character and heritage in Newport. So much like our gathering here today, the first Keeping History Above Water in 2016 recognized that action does not take place within a vacuum, but with input from all. The conference convened architects, engineers, preservationists, city planners, homeowners, and most importantly, community members, to start a conversation about how to adapt and plan for the effects of climate change on our cultural heritage. And at the end of those 3 days, everyone agreed. Why should the conversation stop here? Over the last 8 years, NRF has partnered with 10 communities in the United States and most recently in Trinidad and Tobago to co-host Keeping History Above Water conferences and events. I'm thrilled to be here today to represent NRF in Honolulu and to hear from you all about how climate change and rising seas have affected your communities here and across the Pacific. I hope today will bring cross-discipline conversations and that you'll be open and willing to share both your challenges and your successes with us. At NRF, we consider keeping history above water as part of our ethos. It guides our planning and our decision-making, but most importantly, it reminds us of why we value these places, why they are worth protecting, and how we can work collaboratively to steward them to the next generation. My goal as an attendee today is to listen and to learn from your successes in the Pacific and to bring new ideas home to Newport. And I hope that throughout the day, I'll have the opportunity to share some of our story from Newport with all of you. So thank you for attending today's workshop. On the screen, you're going to see some housekeeping notes for today. Of course, the first is to please silence your phone. If you do need to access the Wi-Fi, you'll see the password and the access code is there. This is also a safe space and a brave space, so we really encourage you to speak truthfully and honestly and to speak boldly and not be afraid to share your ideas. We also have a happy hour tonight, beginning at 5:30, which will be located at Deck. We hope to see many of you there. And tomorrow, most importantly, I think, we're very excited that Dr. Vanita Axon is going to be kind enough to host a walking tour along Waikiki Beach to talk about climate change. That will begin at 7:30 in the morning and will leave from the lobby here at the Doubletree. Hope to see you there. And then finally, of course, parking validation. If you have not yet, you can see a staff member to validate your parking. So I'm very honored this morning to be able to introduce our first speaker for our morning plenary. This will be, of course, the Honorable Kitlang Kabua joining us from the Marshall Islands. Honorable Kabua is the youngest member in the Parliament of the Republic of the Marshall Islands and the first female senator representing the Kwajalein Atoll. Ms. Kabua had previously served as the Minister for Education, Sports and Training, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, and the Minister for Culture and International Affairs. She has also supported the Compact of Free Association renewal negotiation between the Republic of the Marshall Islands and the United States of America as one of the negotiators. Ms. Kabua studied at the American University in Washington, D.C., where she holds a BA in economics. She is passionate about preserving the traditional Marshallese culture and improving the quality of life for women, youth, and persons with disabilities, especially in the face of climate change. So please join me in welcoming Senator Kabua.
Thank you very much. Do I have a clicker too? Oh, okay, perfect. It's definitely an honor to be here amongst you all, here in the beautiful state and islands of Hawaii, brothers and sisters in the Pacific. But before I begin, I want to thank Aunty and Uncle for a beautiful blessing and pay my respects and acknowledgements to the traditional people of the Hawaiian Islands. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Assistant Secretary Brendan Owens from the Department of Defense and the Director of NRF, Alyssa Lorzapan. I apologize if I butchered that last name, and everyone who is gathered in this meeting this morning. I'm very excited to be able to speak a little bit about culture and heritage of the Marshallese people, as well as what we are facing today. Next slide, please. And in the spirit of the Festival of Pacific Arts, the coming together of the nations here in the beautiful Blue Pacific, I wanted to offer your first lesson in the Marshallese language for most of us here in this room. So when I say our word of greeting, you respond, Yahweh. Some like to say that it means you are rainbow. It's a combination of two words, you are rainbow. But I was taught that it means Yahweh, Riakwe. Where are you from? It's what you do when you introduce yourself. So my name is Kitlang Kabua, one of the 3 senators from the largest atoll in the Marshall Islands, Kwajalein Atoll, and in the world. And I have been a senator for the past 5 years, very honored for this position. And I'm here to speak about Marshallese culture, climate change, and coastal inundation. Next slide, please. When I was putting this presentation together, I was keeping in mind how I could structure my presentation to be relevant to what we're trying to achieve through this workshop: cultural preservation, working together, finding solutions. And what dawned on me was what our forefathers in the Marshall Islands had thought about, because this was exactly what they were thinking about. How do we create a better future for our people? And as you can see on this slide, you see our government seal. And underneath that seal, you see the words, Tebelebelin Keijugen. It's one of our Marshallese proverbs that's quite deep, many meanings. However, the meanings that our forefathers had envisioned was preparing today for our generations tomorrow. What is our role today? How are we contributing to society to make a better world for our kids, for their kids? How do we work together to achieve resiliency in the face of what we're facing right now is existential crisis? Next slide. So throughout this presentation, I'll be talking about a brief background and history of the Marshall Islands, the Marshallese cultural heritage, and the importance of cultural resources here in the Pacific Islands. Ways forward, some of what we find works in terms of solution finding, and wrapping up the presentation with reflection. Next slide. So the Marshall Islands, as I said earlier, one of the brothers and sisters of Hawaii and the beautiful islands of the Pacific. Before it was the Marshall Islands, it was called Lalialaplap, or the Great Divide. And when you see the photo on the left, your right, you can see the clusters of islands. They're separated into two chains. The Relic chain, which is the sunset chain, and the Radak chain, which is the sunrise chain. And it is a country nation, low-lying atoll nation, comprised of 29 coral atolls, 5 single coral islands, roughly 1,200 single islets itself. The highest elevation is only 7 feet. Some people here are 6 feet tall, so a little bit higher than that. That's the highest natural elevation in our islands, which is located only on one atoll. The Marshall Islands is located snug between Hawaii and Australia. And the total landmass, if you combine all these little islands together, it's the size of Washington, D.C. And I'll admit, it was one of the reasons why I decided to go to school in Washington, D.C. It was similar to the size of home. However, we do not really identify ourselves as small island nations. We are large ocean states. So when you see the picture on your left, you see that red blob. That's the entirety of the Marshallese, or Marshall Islands territory. It spans over 1.2 million square kilometers. And if you take that red blob, it's about the size of the Pacific Northwest, a little bit larger than it. So just to imagine how our ancestors traversed the Pacific, seeing it, the ocean, not as a divider, but something that connected us. That was their highway. And the population of the Marshall Islands is currently a little bit over 39,000. Next slide, please. The Marshall Islands, like many of our Pacific Island brothers and sisters, were connected by our Austronesian roots. We have linkage to Southeast Asia. Some of the theories say that our people had the Great Migration from Southeast Asia. And our culture doesn't have a written language. It's an oral culture. Everything was passed down generation to generation by word of mouth, through songs, through chants. And our culture is a matrilineal society, meaning that everything that made you a Marshallese came from your mother, because you can never deny who you come from. The father, questions there, but you can never deny who you are born from. So your mother gives you your clan, she gives you your title, and she gives you land. She is a caretaker of all. It's a matrilineal society made up of clans, 44 clans, and lineage that combines to set up a complex land tenure system. Each clan lives on a wedo. Yes, in the Marshall Islands, it's what we say, kamanten pomna. We are made of only coral and sand, but the land is very valuable to us. So these clans lived on wedos, which is parcels of land that span from the ocean side all the way to the lagoon side. I don't know if anyone here has been on a atoll island, but that's the setup. Ocean side and lagoon side, where it gives access to the clan, all the resources that you can find from these locations. And through these harsh conditions, you had to figure out how to live or to survive. You couldn't just sit there because you would die. So the Marshallese, carbon dating suggests that the first settlers arrived in the Marshall Islands 2,500 years ago. So they sure had a lot of time for trial and error, for observation, to be one with nature instead of being dominant over nature. They perfected a way of life that was fit for them. They became ace open ocean navigators so that they can traverse the entirety of the Pacific in order to get resources. And they found a way of living that produced harmony, that produced oneness, and that didn't leave anyone needing. No one was born destitute. Everyone was born connected. Even if you were not from the Marshall Islands and you were like baby Moses who arrived in a basket, they would assign you to a clan and they would give you a land parcel so that you can live off of it and so that your generations would live off of it. So everything was intentional with the image of connecting our generation, or them back then, to their generations beyond. We were set. And just to highlight the importance of our land, like the many cultures in the Pacific, land is part of our identity. It's not bountiful land. It's not land that is, scenic and done with mountains and waterfalls, but it is ours, and it is cherished in our culture. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, in the Pacific, we share similar values. And I surely can't speak on the culture of these other countries and nations, these other people here in Oceania. But what I can certainly say is that we have three things that are near and dear to us, Pacific Islanders. First, it's the identity that we are large ocean states. We are the caretakers of the Pacific Ocean. I really like that. I got it from one of the speakers during FESPAC. We are the caretakers of the beautiful blue Pacific because it gives us life. The other thing that gives us life is our identity as small island nations, protectors of our land. Land that is made from coral and sand, we are charged and mandated to protect it with all that we have. And the other thing that is very important to us is language. Because language acts as the connector. It's the frond that connects us today to our people yesterday to our generations to come. Without our language, we lose the value and we lose the essence of our culture, what was passed down to us from our ancestors. So here in the Pacific, and you see it, it is something that is valued, and we are striving very hard to preserve it. Next slide, please. I also wanted to briefly run through events that influenced the lives of the Marshallese people. And I'll have to step to the side just to look at it, if I may. Oy. Well, let's begin by, oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. History of the Marshall Islands. So in the last 500 years, we can say that the last 500 years brought events and visitors that truly impacted our culture, our land, and our people. It started, the first interaction from the outside world came in the 1500s with the Spaniards. And in 1788, a gentleman by the name of Captain John Marshall, he stopped by and said, "These islands will be named after me." 1857 brought Christianity through the Boston Protestant missionaries who came and started converting our people. 1885, the Germans annexed the islands and we became a protectorate between this time frame, 1886 to 1914. And then after World War I, 1914 to 1944, we became a Japanese mandate. After those 30 years, post-World War II, 1944, the US captures our islands. 1946 to 1958 were some of the events that truly changed our people and our land. Those 12 years was when the US nuclear weapons, nuclear testing program had taken place that resulted in 67 detonated nuclear bombs in our islands. 1947, the United Nations grants US trusteeship. 1979, the Marshall Islands gains independence because our forefathers had recognized that we are a different country. We are a people of a different culture and different language, and we need to be sovereign. And in 1986, the RMI US ratifies Compact of Free Association, which allows and grants the US rights over our ocean, our land, and our airspace. And in return, monetary compensation, military protection, as well as immigration benefits for both countries. And since it was first signed and ratified in 1986, we were fortunate to have it renewed and amended in 2003, and most recently 2024. Next slide, please. Where are the Marshallese? What's the status of the Marshallese and the Marshall Islands today? We have been dubbed one of the most vulnerable countries in the face of climate change, as low-lying atolls, along with 3 other countries in the world. And what we see from the effects of climate change and coastal inundation is existential. We have been doomed with this slow onset killer, coastal or the sea level rise. We find coastal erosion more frequent tidal and storm events, inundation, longer and harsher droughts, among many things. And to make that worse, or to highlight the doom that we're faced with, the US DoD put out a strategic environment report that shows that between the years 2030 and 2040, our islands, or Roy Namur, one of the islands that the military uses in the Marshall Islands, and similarly, most of the islands of the Marshalls, will reach the tipping point. What does that mean? Our islands will become uninhabitable because our natural water reserves, water reservoirs, would be contaminated. We have some of the highest rates of non-communicable diseases in the Pacific. Diabetes, heart problems, and health issues that are still linked to our nuclear legacy. We're dealing with a population that is not at its peak health. And because of this, a lot of the people are moving here to the States to seek better health services, to seek better educational opportunities, job opportunities. And we have a growing Marshallese diaspora here in the United States. And another reason why they move is because of, now, climate change. Some of these people have lost their homes during king tides. Their homes were washed away and they couldn't build back because they didn't have the resources. So it's compounded. We do have one of the largest, Marshall Islands provides per capita some of the largest in number military personnel in the US military service. And we do have a US military installation in the Marshall Islands. It's located in the Kwajalein Atoll, and we do see social impacts from it. One, it's the second largest employer in the Marshall Islands, so it really does contribute greatly to our local GDP. And unfortunately, it's one of the causes of the overpopulation that we experience on Ibai and Tanto Island, which are islands right next to the military installation. Majority of the people that are on Ibai, they're not indigenous to the Kwajalein Atoll. Next slide. These are some of the photos that I wanted to show you about how climate change and coastal inundation is affecting our people. So the photos, top left and center and bottom left, they're images that we got from these islands, different islands in the last 10 years after tidal and storm events. And the top right and top bottom right, they're of Roy Island. The Mega Wave 2024 is what we're calling it. It devastated Roy Namur, which is one of the islands that the US uses in the military base, the US Army garrison. Just devastation. It was quite scary. Next slide. Of all these problems that we face, this existential crisis that we are facing today, I really liked what our moderator had said this morning about how NRF was founded. We need to find solutions, not in a vacuum. We need to collaborate with one another. We need to find partners who are willing to join the fight and join the efforts of solution finding. So the best ways that we found help address these needs is through collaborative science and resilience planning. At our RMI, or Marshallese National level, we've come out into the international level as climate champions. Through our partnership with scientists, our partnership with lobbying firms and what have you, we have managed to prepare our islands to be able to adapt and to be able to be resilient in the midst of the challenges that come from climate change. And it's through planning at this stage, because planning is one thing and then implementation is another thing. We have created and developed a national adaptation plan that was recently launched at the COP in Egypt, which was quite astounding. And so it was the first of its kind here in the Pacific. But what folks had commented on this national adaptation plan was that it was very comprehensive. We have also come out as leaders in the International Maritime Organization, promoting decarbonization of the shipping sector. The shipping sector is the largest gas emitter in the world, and the Marshall Islands has the second or third largest ship registry worldwide. We didn't want to just walk the walk. We wanted to walk the talk. Yes, we have some of the largest ship registries, but we want to be proactive in pushing for a greener future. That's at the national level. What I really wanted to talk to you about today is what's taking place at the local level, what's taking place back home. So there's a case study, Kwajalein Atoll. And this is my home. The Kwajalein Atoll, or the Dolphin Atoll, when you look at it, it looks like a dolphin. At the nose, the tip of the dolphin, the bottom, that's where you'll find one of the islets, populated islets. It's Ibai Island. That small little island has nearly 10,000 people packed onto it. You can see there's not a lot of greenery, foliage. It's an urban center. All these people coming in from the neighboring islands, seeking better job opportunities right next door on the base, or education opportunities. This is home. This would be the perfect place to prove any research for solutions in the area of climate change, working with or in an urban setting. Next slide. So on Kwajalein and on Ibai, what we are trying to do through these initiatives that I will read out is testing models, collaborative models that we hope will be replicated elsewhere. If it works, let's expand it. Let's expand it nationwide or throughout the region, or better yet, throughout the world. Because what we are doing is building the next generation of climate warriors and climate navigators. So the first program that I wanted to talk about is the Pacific Allies Program and the Spartan Summer Camp. So the Pacific Allies Program was established in 2017, and it's an experimental service learning program designed to help students, to help cadets and midshipmen from here in the United States, recognizing that they are the future leaders of the United States, understand climate change impacts on national security. This was developed in collaboration with Indo-PACOM, University of Hawaii, Tufts University, and several service academies, as well as with our Kwajalein leadership and our Kwajalein education system. And through this program, the Pacific Allies, these students and cadets and midshipmen, they fly over to the Marshalls, to Ibai, to work with our future leaders, young students who are enrolled in what we call the Spartan Summer Camp. So every summer, they get together and learn about STEAM, the focus and discipline of STEAM. So not only do they learn STEAM from the modern sense, learning how to survey coral underwater, or learn how to build bridges from popsicle sticks, or learning how to build drone kits and flying them along the coast and taking pictures to observe the impacts of climate change. They are learning STEAM from the cultural perspective too. We bring in master weavers to teach them how to weave, navigational experts to teach them how to build a canoe and sail a canoe, navigate, make local medicine, and listening to stories, because that's how our people transferred knowledge, through word of mouth. So through this program, they interact with each other, they learn from one another, and these cadets and students and midshipmen, they get information that will help them with their research. Most importantly, it exposes them and raises awareness to their close partners in the Pacific, the Marshall Islands. So one of the programs that we're very proud of. The other program that I wanted to talk about is the Kwajalein Atoll Sustainability Lab. CASL, as we like to call it, is a Marshallese NGO established with the U.S. Office of Naval Research, with participation from many partners, several academies, and international institutions. So great minds collaborating to see how we can improve research, how we can use a Kwajalein Atoll as a place where the scholarly community can come and test their ideas for the sake of benefiting or adding to the cause. And it's within these areas that we encourage researchers to come. Cultural preservation, water security, food security, energy security, shelter, sanitation, healthcare, communication, education, transportation, job creation, and ecosystem generation. And they have available places or venues, testing venues, which includes the ocean, our lagoon, our airspace, the land, electromagnetic spectrums, and infrastructure that you find in an urban setting. So the whole aim, the whole goal of KHAW is physical, social, and cultural preservation of our Marshallese, of the Pacific, and of the global community. Next is the Picard Conference, the Pacific Islands Climate Adaptation Research and Development Conference that will take place tomorrow and on Saturday. It is the first of its kind, and we're very proud. KHAW is very proud to be hosting it. It is bringing in researchers, the science community, to come and do demonstrations of their technology. In the audience, you have members and representatives from throughout the Pacific, from research institutions, from government, on both sides. And it seems as if it will be a packed conference, so we're very excited to share space, share information, what may work, what might not work, but it's all very exciting. And one of the other last initiatives that I'll mention today, considering time, is the Women Engagement Team Oceania Kwajalein, or WEDO. If you remember what I said, WEDO means land in Marshallese, so WEDO Kwajalein. This initiative, this program, is rebooting the Marines Female Engagement Team, which was a team of female Marines that were deployed to Iran to help calm the war situation there through their engagements with the females, the women of the community, which was very successful. This is what we're trying to achieve. How do we improve the quality of life? How do we find solutions, a whole of society approach to climate change, to finding strategies, security strategies, or safeguarding strategies through the use and engagements with our mothers. So this will be a chapter. We're having our first meeting in the 15th and 19th, and it's bringing in women from the traditional background, from the church, faith-based circle, as well as our mothers in the home and throughout the community. So this is an initiative that I believe will be very successful, as the Marshall Islands is a matrilineal society. Next slide. There are some clips of the programs that I just shared. The Spartan Summer Camp, learning about STEAM through their activities. The Pacific Allies Program, you see the photo of the cadets and a couple of the members from our Pacific allies posing with Michael, one of our paramount chiefs. And then in the center is one of the research that was created under KHAW. It's called the Tibare Floating Research Nest, and it's located on Ebelan Island, which is an island furthest north in the Kwajalein Atoll. Next slide. So, again, I am very honored to be part of a workshop like this, to learn from each and every one of you as folks who share our values in seeing how we can preserve our culture, seeing how we can preserve our identity, and most importantly, our home. But in our case, in case of the Marshallese, people of Kwajalein Atoll, my family, there is a sense of urgency. I had just brought up the report that said that by 2030, 2040, we may reach tipping point. Our islands will not become habitable. This is not something that is further down in the future. It's within my lifespan. It's within, certainly, my kids' lifespan. My kids are 2 and 6 years old. That is less than a decade away. So it is doing them a disservice and our future generations just sitting around and waiting for the inevitable. How do we change the future? How do we find solutions to ensure that our kids live in peace? Because that's ultimately what we want as parents, for our children and our future generations to have a better life than we had. And it is scary to think that in the future, they may be disconnected from their land. The land is our identity, and yet we are threatened by something that we did not cause. So throughout my presentation, I hope that I illustrated something, that we are not just sitting with our hands on our lap, waiting for a solution to be given to us, waiting for resources to be dished out to us. No, we're doing something about it. We are leading in our space. We're bringing in like-minded thinkers to see how we can collaborate with one another and find a solution for all of our future kids, for my future kids, for mankind. So after this conference, I'll be around. I'm more than happy to share my information. If you want to join the efforts, join the fight, join the partnership, please, we welcome you with open arms. Tibilibinin kayugan. How do we prepare today for a brighter tomorrow? Next slide. Kumol tata is the last lesson. Thank you very much. Salamat.